See how the pen works.
Do you guys want to read through these pages together before we do it?
You gonna read?
Yeah, I'll read.
Alright.
Do you guys want me to do that? Tatiana, you want me to read through? And we can answer questions as we go? No, Tatiana, what do you think? Cool either way? Alright, cool. So let's start page 6. We'll start there, and then we'll answer our questions together. Okay. Alright, where are we? Let's start at Bellissima, Juan replied, into much loveliness. They did not reach Twin Pines that day, but on their return,
Oh, I see it.
page 6, yep. But on their return a week later, they inquired in Jackson about the opportunity of buying land or a house in the mountains. The man, though surprised, told them of the sawmill town of Twin Pines, where there were houses for sale. Everybody read this already, right? Second read? Yeah, okay. Their continued walk on that day precipitated the feeling in Juan that it was indeed the materialization of a dream. He had been able in all those years to save $2,000, and a man had a small shack for sale at the far edge of town. He looked carefully at Juan and at La Belisa and said, $1,000.
She picked.
He looked carefully at Juan and La Belisa and said, $1,000, believing they could never begin to possess such a sum. When Juan handed him the money, hang on 1 second. Sorry.
Oh, I left my lipstick in the bathroom. Can I go get it?
Is that a priority for you right now?
Yes, it is because I paid $18.50.
Alright, then that's on you. Go ahead. Alright. Where are we?
Danielle, that'd be your key, huh?
Hey, what's up, Jermaine?
You was at $1,000.
$1,000. Yes, thank you. $1,000. There you go. Get you your paper.
Huh? Yeah.
So you go to my-
I had them for a minute. I just did. They was in the motherfucking car.
Alright, we are reading through the second half on page 6 right now. Alright, he looked carefully at Juan and La Belisa said, $1,000, believing they could never begin to possess such a sum. When Juan handed him the money, the man was so struck that he made out a bill of sale. Juan Sanchez and his wife had their home in the Sierra. They bought this house, okay. Their continued luck on that day precipitated my bad. When Juan saw the cabin up close, he knew the man had stolen their money. It was small, the roof slanted to one side, the door would not close easily. Yep. The cabin was gradually falling down. Oh, you got really, so yeah, grab that paper on your desk and take your backpack, but don't lose your backpack. Your backpack is open also. Alright. Sorry folks, all over the place. When Juan saw the cabin close up, he knew the man had stolen their money. It was small, the roof slanted to one side, the door would not close easily. The cabin was gradually falling downhill, but it was theirs and he could, with work, repair it. Hurriedly, they drove back to Jackson, rented a truck, bought some cheap furniture, and hauled it back to the cabin. When they had moved in, Juan brought forth a bottle of whiskey, and for the first time in his life proceeded to get truly drunk. Juan was very happy with La Belisa. She accepted his philosophy completely, understood his need, made it her own. In spite of the people of the town, they created a peculiar kind of joy. And anyway, Juan had knowledge about the people. Twin Pines had been founded, he learned, by one Benjamin Carter, who lived with his daughter in a magnificent house on the hill overlooking town. The Benjamin Carter was a very wealthy man. Where am I?
Hold up, you said that was number 2?
Yeah, or something. I think it's 2 or 3.
No, it's two.
It's 2?
What happened to Ben Carter's wife?
Yeah, hang on, we're going to read right now. He had come to the mountains 30 years before to save his marriage, for he had been poor once and loved when he was poor. But then he grew very rich because of oil discovered on his father's Ohio farm, and he went away to the city and became incapable of love in the pursuit of money and power. When at last he married the woman whom he loved, a barrier had grown between them. For Ben Carter had changed, but the woman had not. Then the woman became ill, and Ben Carter promised her he would take her west, all the way west from the city, so that it could be as it had been in the beginning of their love. But the woman was with child, and so Ben Carter rushed to the California mountains, bought 1,000 acres of land, and hurried to build his house before the rain and snow came. He hired many men, and the house was completed except for the interior work and furnishings. All that winter, men he had hired worked in the snow to finish the house while Ben Carter waited with his wife in the city. Sorry, I cannot read today. When it was early spring, they set out for California. Ben Carter, his wife, and the doctor, who strongly advised against the rough train trip and the still rougher climb by horse and wagon from Jackson to the house. But the woman wanted the child born properly, so they went. The baby came the evening of their arrival at their house.
My son, no his word.
And the woman died
That's
all
not
night
I did.
having it. Okay.
That's the same. His mother, the boy mother, and one mother both died on this.
Good connection. So La Belisa, right? She just died. Or sorry, Ben Carter's wife, not La Belisa. It was this Ben Carter who lived with that daughter now in the great house on the hill, possessing her to the point, it was said about his madness, that he had murdered a young man who had shown interest in her. Psycho. Juan learned all this from a Mexican servant who had worked at the great house from the beginning. And when he told the story to La Belisa, she wept because of its sadness. It was a tragedy of love, she explained, and Juan, soaring to the heights of his imagination, believed that the town, all 100 souls, had somehow been infected with the tragedy, as they were touched by the shadow of the house itself, which crept directly up the highway each night when the sun set.
That's the infection.
Well, it's talking about how like the sadness or the tragedy is kind of like an infection. Like the event was so sad that everybody in the town kind of felt it, right? So it's kind of like you sort of catch the sadness like a sickness, right?
The infection was fake.
Well, it's, yeah, it's sort of like the sadness. You know, like an infection is like if I have a cold and then you catch the cold, right? It spreads. So they're kind of talking about sadness like this infection, like everybody keeps catching it. It just keeps spreading, right? Sort of like a play on words, kind of. All right. This was why they left dead chickens and fish on the porch of the cabin, or dumped garbage into the yard. He believed he understood something profound, and so did nothing about these incidents, which, after all, might have been the pranks of boys. He did not want the infection to touch him, nor the deeper infection of their prejudice, because he was Mexican. He was not indifferent. He was simply too much in love with La Belisa and the Sierra Nevada. Finally, the incident stopped. Now the life of Juan Sanchez entered its most beautiful time. When the first snows fell, he became delirious, running through the pines, shouting, rolling on the ground, catching the flakes in his open mouth, bringing them in his cupped hands to rub in the hair of La Belisa, who stood in the doorway of their cabin, laughing at him. He danced, made up a song about snowflakes falling on a desert, and then a prayer which he addressed to the Virgin of Snowflakes. That night, while the snow fluttered like wings against the bedroom window, he celebrated the coming of the whiteness with La Belisa. He understood that first year in the mountains, that love was an enlargement of himself, that it enabled him to be somehow more than he had ever been before, as though certain pores of his senses had only just been opened. Whereas before he had desired the Sierra Nevada for its beauty in contrast to his harsh fatherland, which is Mexico. Now he came to acquire this love for it. And he loved it as he loved La Belisa. He loved it as a woman. Also in that year, he came to realize that there was a fear or dread about such love. It was more a feeling than anything else, something which reached thought now and then, particularly in those last moments before sleep. It was an absolutely minor thing. The primary knowledge was of the manner in which this love seemed to assimilate everything, rejecting all that would not yield. This love was a kind of blindness. That summer, Juan left La Belisa at times to pick the crops of the San Joaquin Valley. He had become good friends with the servant of the big house, and this man had access to the owner's car, which he always drove down the mountain in a reckless but confident manner. After that summer, Juan planned also to buy a car, not out of material desire, but simply because he believed this man would one day kill himself, and also because he did not wish to be dependent. He worked in the walnuts near the town of Linden and against the tomatoes of the rich delta. He wanted very much to have La Belisa with him, but that would have meant more money and a hotel room in the Skid Row, and that was impossible because of the pimps and whores, the drunks and criminals, and the general despair, which the police always capped at periodic intervals, as one does a vat of fermenting wine. The Skid Row was a place his love could not assimilate, but he could not ignore it because many of his people were lost there. He stayed in labor camps, which were also bad because of what men did with themselves, but they were tolerable. He worked hard and as often as he could gazed at the mountains, which he could always see clearly in the morning light. When tomato season was over, he returned to La Belleza. Though the town would never accept them as equals, it came that summer to tolerate their presence. La Belleza made straw baskets, which she sold to the townspeople, and which were desired for their beauty and intricacy of design. Juan carved animals, a skill he had acquired from his father, and these were also sold. The activity succeeded so well that Juan took a box of their things to Jackson, where they were readily purchased. The following spring he was able to buy a Ford. Juan acquired another understanding that second year in the mountains. It was, he believed, that love, his love, was the single greatness of which he was capable. The thing which ennobled him and gave him honor. Love, he became convinced, was his only ability. The one success he had accomplished in a world of insignificance. It was a simple thing after all, made so painfully simple each time he went to the valley to work with his face toward the ground. Every time he saw the men in the fields and listened to their talk and watched them drive off to the skid row at night. So we're at the middle of page 8 for people who are looking. After he had acquired this knowledge, the nights he had to spend away from La Belleza were occupied by a new kind of loneliness, as though a part of his body had been separated from the whole. He began also to understand something more of the fear or dread that seemed to trail behind love. It happened late in the 6th year of their marriage. It was impossible, of course, and he spent many hours at the fire in their cabin, telling La Belleza of the impossibility, for the doctor had assured him that all had been well timed. He had conducted himself on the basis of that assumption, but doctors can be wrong. Doctors can make mistakes. La Belleza was with child. So, how many pregnancies has she had so far?
Two.
It's her third. It's her third pregnancy. For the first 5
I
months.
thought she was dead.
That's Ben Carter, that random guy who lived in the town, his wife. For the first 5 months, the pregnancy was not difficult, and he came almost to believe that indeed the passage of La Belleza would open. He prayed to God, he prayed to the earth and sky, he prayed to the soul of his mother. But after the 5th month, the true sickness began, and he discarded prayer completely in favor of blasphemy. There was no God, and never could be God in the face of such sickness, such unbelievable human sickness. Even when he had her removed to the hospital in Stockton, the doctors could not stop it. But it continued so terribly that he believed that La Belleza carried sickness itself in her womb. After 7 months, the doctors decided to take the child. They brought La Belleza into a room with lights and instruments. They worked on her for a long time, and she died there, under the lights with the doctors cursing and perspiring above the large wound of her pain. They did not tell him of the child, which they had all cleaned and placed in an incubator until the next day. That night, he sat in the Ford and tried to see it all, but he could only remember the eyes of La Belleza in the vortex of pain. They were of an almost eerie calmness. They had possessed calmness as one possesses truth. Toward morning, he slumped sideways on the seat and went to sleep. So he put her body away in the red earth of the town cemetery beyond the cabin. The pines came together overhead, and in the heat of midday, a shadow sprinkled with spires of light lay upon the ground, so that the earth was cool and clean to smell. He did not even think of, page 9, taking her back to Mexico, since from the very beginning, she had always been part of that dream he had dreamed. Now she would always be in the Sierra Nevada, with the orange and blue flowers, the quiet deep whiteness of winter, and all that he ever was or could be was with her. So that's the end of this flashback, so now we're going back to the present, okay? But he did not think these last thoughts then, as he did now. He had simply performed them out of instinct for their necessity, as he had performed the years of labor while waiting for the infant Jesus to grow to manhood. Jesus. Why had he named the boy Jesus? That, perhaps, had been instinct too. He had stayed after La Belleza's death for the boy, to be with him until manhood, to show him the loveliness of the Sierra Nevada, to instruct him towards true manhood. But Jesus, Jesus the American, Jesus the Clotilde, Jesus understood nothing. Jesus, he believed, was forever lost to knowledge. That day with Jesus had been his own liberation. For a truth had come upon him after the years of waiting, the ultimate truth that he understood only because La Belleza had passed through his life. Love was beauty, La Belleza and the Sierra Nevada, a kind of created or made thing. But there was another kind of love, a very profound, embracing love that he had felt of late, blowing across the mountains from the south, and that, he knew now, had always been there from the beginning of his life, disguised in the sun and wind. In this love, there was blood and earth, and yes, even God, some kind of God, at least the power of God. This love wanted him for its own.